Hey everyone, it's Sheena Grove again, ninth grade English teacher in Iowa, and I wanted to take a minute to say thank you. Thank you for sharing my video. Thank you for sharing your own stories. Thank you for writing to me. Thank you for the support. It has been overwhelming, and I never in a million years thought that as many people would hear my journey and would be inspired the way that they have been. So thank you very much. I also wanted to take some time to continue my story and continue modeling resilience because, after all, that is my message. I think we spend a lot of time being frustrated that young people today don't have resilience, but we're not giving them anything to model. We're not. We spend a lot of time pretending to be tough, holding back tears in front of our children because we don't want them to see us cry. Acting as though we have it all together, when we don't. We don't always have it together. Sometimes we have a really stressful day. Sometimes we have lots of anxiety. Sometimes we are facing a little bit of depression. And that's okay too. We have to be talking about it because until we do, the stigma for mental illness will continue to exist. People that I have known for my whole life have reached out to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you weren't really happy. You always seem so happy." That's exactly my point. People, young people especially, are really, really great pretenders. And we can't ignore the fact that mental illness is not immune. We are not immune to it. Immunity doesn't exist. It can happen to people when they least expect it. They have feelings and thoughts they don't understand, like I did. But it exists, and we can't pretend that it's not something existing within our own loved ones, because it very well might be. I've heard way too many kids say that they don't actually tell their parents everything, that they're not completely honest with their parents all the time. I've had students tell me since my first video came out, "Hey, Mrs. Grove, when you've asked me several times this year if I'm okay, and I've told you that I am, I'm not. And I can't believe you knew." But I can sense it because I was that kid. I really was. So let's be resilient together, and let's share with the young people in our lives what we did to be resilient, to become resilient, and to be strong the way that we might be now. And maybe you're not there yet, and that's okay too. But I mentioned in my first video that I lived in my car for a little while, and I did. And it was a very lonely time, and it was a time that I had a lot of thinking to do. And I think that's when I realized I needed to tell someone, but I didn't know who to tell. I didn't go to my high school counselors. They were strangers to me. They didn't know me. I didn't feel like I could open up completely to my school counselor, who didn't even really know my name if I was to walk into his office. It's a big school, so that wasn't feasible for me. I thought about a lot of my teachers, but I didn't want to disappoint them or scare them. But then I thought about one of my coaches, my cheerleading coach. And she was a person who was always very honest about her own life, and never to the level of really deep and dark feelings the way that I was experiencing them. But she always talked very openly about herself, and she was honest. And more importantly than that, she was dependable. She was always there, and she was always honest. And she was consistent in that when I didn't have someone who was dependable at home. I didn't have consistency at home. It was volatile. With my dad's alcoholism and my mom's struggle in coping with that, I didn't really feel like I had anyone I could count on all the time, no matter what, except for her. So I told her first. And I didn't tell her everything, but I told her little bits and pieces about my life to gauge the situation. But that baby step, that's all I really needed in order to start developing some resilience and to realize I wasn't, in fact, alone. So I told her first, and that led to me telling my best friend a little bit. Not everything yet, but a little bit. Told her I was living in my car, and she eventually told her parents, who said, "Sheena, you're going to come live with us. And I did. And they didn't know everything. And they maybe didn't know everything until this video came out. But that's okay, because that first step, just telling someone, meant that I had a support system. And I don't know what I would be doing today if I hadn't opened up to someone the way I opened up to my cheerleading coach. I slept on her couch for a couple of nights and we just talked about a lot of things. And that's when I realized that it can be okay, that I can do this. And my competitiveness kicked in. And I realized I don't want my dad's alcoholism to win. I realized it wasn't fair that his alcoholism was making me feel poorly. It wasn't fair. And I realized that I wanted to be successful in life. I wanted to prove to him, I wanted to prove to everybody else, I wanted to prove to his alcoholism that I was worth something and that I could go do great things in this world. And that competitiveness is what really turned things around for me. I could have very easily gone in a different direction. I could have made poor choices, but I didn't, because I saw it as an opportunity. And I still see every decision that I make in life as an opportunity. And I'm now nearly 31 years old, and I am extremely happy because I've chosen to surround myself with positive people, with people who contribute to our friendship in the same way that I do, people who are honest with me about their own lives all the time, people who are genuine, and people who I can always depend on. And being able to nurture those friendships has really enabled me to gain confidence over the years. And I'm now in a really fantastic place. And I know I'm the person I am today because of the tough times I've gone through. They've made me stronger, absolutely 100%. And I know that I'm a great teacher, partially because of the vulnerability that I've shown my students, the fact that I do talk about myself, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I don't ever want them to feel the way that I felt. I don't ever want them to feel like they have to pretend in front of me, though I know they sometimes still do. But I absolutely know that that's the only way we're going to break the stigma of mental illness, is if we talk about it so that people don't feel like they're alone, so that young people feel like they have some ideas for what they might do when they start to feel like they have nowhere to go. We have to be talking about our own struggles. They don't have to be as deep and dark and depressing as mine, but even just a bad day, open up the conversation. And if you're not sure how to do that, start it in writing. That's one thing I've learned in 8 years of teaching, is that kids are very willing to write about their own thoughts and feelings. So maybe you and your child or the young person in your life, you have a notebook and you pass it back and forth. Or maybe you make a habit of, at the end of every day, rating your day on a scale of 1 to 10 and talking about why that might be, to develop some emotional awareness. But either way, we have to talk about our own lives, and not just in a scripted way that seems as if it's coming from a textbook, but in a very sincere way. And that's what I'm attempting to do today. So thank you if you've already started to talk to the young people in your lives, to all of your loved ones about the things you've experienced and what you did to rise above them. Thank you if you've shared my first video and tried to send my message to more people so that we can end the stigma that is mental illness and accept the fact that our society needs to do something more than we're doing now. Please feel free to share this video as well. Please feel free to make your own. Share your own journeys with me, with other people, so that we can feel as if we are together in this. Because honestly, we are.